What's up, guys? Fantasia here, and welcome back to Pong. In the previous video, we set up um, a moving ball, and we did some basic collision checks between the ball and the wall. And in this video, we need to set up some collision checks between the ball and the paddle, and as well as some game logic to determine whether the ball has hit the other side of the screen, indicating that the score or that the player has scored on the other player. So let's get down to it. Let's see here. So we've got our code here for the ball and wall collision here, and we also have the ball update function, which is responsible for updating the position of the ball, and we've got the speed X and speed Y. And actually, what I'm going to do for now, for testing purposes, is I'm going to increase the speed of the ball. Let's say in the X direction is going to be 4 pixels per second, or per frame rather, and then for the Y, where I'm going to set it up to 3. So we get this nice, actually, so make it -4 and 3. Yeah, so it's gonna go it's gonna go up and to the right. So let's make sure. Oh wait, oops. Wow. Okay, that ball went flying. Actually, it's the wrong. There we go. Because I want it to go. I want it to go up and to the right, like that. Perfect. Okay, and that's just for testing purposes. I think that's a little bit too high. It's about good. I think that's about right. Okay, so just so the ball doesn't take forever to get from place to place. So okay, so now let's do some collision detection between the ball and the paddle. So here I have the collision detection code, and it's very similar to the collision detection code that I wrote in my tutorial number 13, collision detection. If you need some background on that, go rewatch that video, so that you understand what this code means. Because basically this part is, we're defining the points that we need to we're defining the points of the objects that we're trying to check collisions for. Okay, so for the paddle, it's going to be, this is the paddle skeleton. Basically, it's going to be the upper left X and Y, the lower right corner X and Y, the upper left X and Y, and the lower right. So we've basically defined the entire geometry of the paddle here, for player 1 and player 2. And let me go ahead, and there we go. So you can see all of it. So this is the player 1. This is player 1 upper left, lower right. Player 2 upper left, lower right. And then this is the ball upper left, lower right. So in all we have essentially three objects that we're checking collisions for, and these are the skeletons of those objects. So now we need to go ahead and feed these into our collision function, which I've got defined here. Okay, so this is colliding, and this is, again, this is the code from video 13, and it's also available on my Google Drive in the link in the discussions section of my channel. So if you want the code, go there and get the code. So let's go ahead and do that. So what do we want to do here? What's our goal here? We want, well, before I can even explain, okay, so we want the ball to hit the paddle and then bounce off of it, right? So like in our design, okay, so like in the design here, we've got the ball going towards the paddle and bouncing off. So essentially we're going to want to flip the direction of the speed here, okay, just like just like we did with the wall. Um, so if the ball comes at the paddle with some x direction, we need to flip the x direction, and leave the y direction alone, because we don't care about the collision on the y direction, just the x direction. Um, so let's go ahead and do that. See. All right. All right. So we need to feed our skeleton into the collision detection method, routine here. So I've got the code here, and I'm going to assign the results of the collision check to this variable called collision results. Okay, and this is colliding, and what I've done here is I've fed the skeleton values for the points into the collision detection method, and it's going to spit out some results. It's going to be 0 if, well, let's see, yeah, it's going to be a 0 if it's not colliding, and then it's going to be a 1 if it is colliding. So what it is every frame that the ball is moving is going to change position. Okay, and if this collision detection returns a 1, that on that frame that the ball is colliding, it's going to put the 1 in collision results, and then we're going to take an action based on that. So if the collision results is not equal to 0, in other words, if it's basically a collision, if it's 1, then we're going to flip the ball speed in the x direction and make the ball go the other way. Okay, so this is between player 1 and the ball. It's not going to check player 2 yet, because this is player 2's collision function here. We're just going to go ahead and test that to make sure it works and everything. So let's go ahead and rebuild that and run that. Oh, well, it's not going to do it if it's in the wrong direction. So let's make it go towards player 1 first and slow it down. Yeah, that probably wasn't a good idea to speed it up. Alright, so let's go ahead and try to catch it. There it goes. And then it bounces off the paddle like that, just like in the design, and then it doesn't check for the second player yet. So that code is good. So let's go ahead and mirror that for player 2, which I've already got written here. And basically I took collision results and I reused it here, and I've set it equal to the results of paddle 2 and the ball. Okay, and one thing to note here, it doesn't really matter what is colliding with what. So like if I say check collision between paddle and ball, it's the same thing as if I say check the collision between ball and paddle. Like they're the same, they're essentially the same. It doesn't matter what is colliding with what. The big idea is just there's a collision happening. So in the same kind of idea here, we're doing the same thing for player 2 and the ball. So if collision results is not equal 0, then flip the speed, and let's go ahead and check that. Okay, so it bounces off of player 1, then it bounces off the wall, and then bounces off of player 2. And so we've got this nice back and forth motion going. Okay, very good. So our Pong game is starting to look like Pong, which is great. There are a couple things I wanted to change, and I mean, again, this is your game. You know, if you know, you can do it this however you want. If there are certain things you can tweak if you want, like if you don't like the paddles on the you know, on the right on the edge, which I don't like that, then you can change it. So we can go ahead and set that, make it look a little nicer, but we'll do that later. So now that we've got collisions between the ball and the paddle, what we need to do now is we need to add some logic to the game so that it knows that one person has scored on the other. Okay, so what we need to do is say if the ball X has reached a certain value, then it needs to be considered as a score. Okay, so we need to go ahead and put that in there. So as you can see, the ball, if it reaches the edge, it just goes on forever. So we need to stop that from happening. Let's see. Let's put it. I suppose we could put it right before. It doesn't really matter because it's all like gonna happen in the same. It all happens really in the same frame, so it doesn't really matter in which order you put any of this in. It just means it's just going to check for collisions before it's going to check whether the ball is out. I mean, it doesn't really matter though. So here we're going to check to see check if ball is out of bounds. Okay, so essentially what we're going to say is if ball dot next, or actually ball next X, or what did I call it? Next ball X. Okay, next ball X is less than 0, then we're going to consider that a score. Same thing here. If the ball has gone out of bounds on the other side, then we're going to consider that a score. But let's focus on this side for now, on the left side of the window. So if the ball's X is less than 0, then it hit the left side of the window, and we need to consider that a score. So what we're going to want to do is we want to put the ball back in the center of the window if the ball reaches that, because we want to make the ball so we can serve it again. So we're going to say ball dot X equals screen width divided by 2, and this essentially sets the ball back where it was before it got served. Okay, so it just resets the position. Reset ball position. Okay, so and then it just basically starts over. Okay, so we go ahead, we can run that, and okay, so it collides, and then we're just gonna let it go. Oh well, I guess that was on the wrong side. We'll let it go now, and just don't hit it. Okay, see, now the ball it went back to the center again, and then it reserves. But it doesn't do that on the other side because there's no code for that. So let's put in some code for that and say what we want to do is we want to check if next ball X is greater than the screen height, then we want to say that that's a collision on the other side of the wall. So screen width, and screen width is basically defines the right side of the window. It's the same code as this really, because in either case you want the ball to be reset. So there we go. So now it's going to reset the ball on either okay. Then if it's on the right side, it will reset. Okay, so you'll never lose the ball. It'll always come back. Okay. There's also you'll notice that you can actually move the paddle off screen. That's a problem too. You shouldn't be able to do that. So we'll fix that in a later video. But so far, I mean, we've got it working. Now there are a couple things we probably need to make better. Like obviously when the ball goes off screen, we don't want to just start it out moving. We want to put the ball back in the center, make it rest, or make it sit still for a while, and then serve it. That just kind of makes it cleaner and better for people to, because I mean it's just kind of discombobulating for the ball to just keep moving. So I mean it's really low level, but it's we're getting there. So um, yeah, I think we've made considerable progress there. And then in the next video, we'll also fix the position of all the paddles and things, and just make everything look a little nicer. So I'll see you guys then. Later.